movies are great illustrations of how this moral studies going forward. In terms of virtue ethicists, Socrates, Aristotle, and David Hume, those features are used in the movie to develop the character of the person. And then you, the audience, react to it. In real life, you don't have access to that information. So it's hard to judge someone's character, their feelings, or even the knowledge that they have. That's why you have to ask questions, or you have to be in near them and to observe them to understand a lot of things about them. There is another way to approach morality, which is deontology. When you do the right thing, what's the right thing to do? There's a movie. Well, it's not really just a movie, it's an entire series, okay? John Wick. And John Wick is a mafia boss. If you haven't seen John Wick as a movie, I recommend you go see one version of it. He's not a mafia boss. He's a hitman for the mob. Actually, he's a hitman for hire. You hire him, he do things, okay? But the movie picks up in his character where he's kind of like, not necessarily retiring, but he's not really shooting people for as a job. Some incident occurred to him where someone harms his dog and he wants to take vengeance. And later on, he wants to leave this job of killing people, but the mob, the society won't let him go, okay? In the whole movie, he's killing a lot of people just to get free. And the audience are thrilled. I'm thrilled about that movie, okay? What's special about that movie, right? It illustrates something. The way they present John Wick, the character, he is a horrible human being. I mean, his lifestyle, he killed people for a living. That can't be any good. He's a gun for hire. So in a virtue, zero. But in what way is he ethical? Because if we're liking him, they're ethical. He's ethical in the way Kant is presenting it. He is deontologist. He is in the right movement. I don't want to do this anymore. Let me go. You won't let me go. I'm going to fight you for it. I want my freedom. I don't want to do this kind of stuff anymore. Or you hurt my dog. Why'd you hurt my friend? I'm going to hurt you for that. You know what I mean? What they do is deontology. This is the philosophy of Immanuel Kant. We're not going to look at your inside. And I like deontology because with John, with the movie I'm just referring to right here, you get the idea that your character may not be desirable, but if you do the right things will occur in the world. And this is the essence of deontology. In order to make this work, okay, Kant says, hey, we are creatures of reasoning, like Aristotle suggests, okay, like Socrates relied on, okay? However, you have to go deeper than that, okay? Intelligence has two sides. A theoretical side, which is when you're reasoning about things outside yourself, when you're getting university education, when you're studying mathematics or astronomy, okay? And then also intelligence has a practical side. When you're looking at things that are of value to you, when you try to figure out how to diet, when you figure out how to decorate your home, when you figure out how to budget your finances, that's practical reasoning. One intelligence doing two different things. Okay. And he argued that basically David Hume confused that, all right, confused this issue, right? And that morality itself is a practical reasoning. Theoretical reasoning can just get you to the truth. It's not a motive to action. You know what it is. But when you're saying, how should I behave? That's practical reasoning. They should be the same. They're not. Okay. Due to our egos, due to our feelings, due to many reasons, we think because it's us, we should make an exception. Kant says no. He says no, all right? The next thing Kant does is he's clearly recognized and developed the idea of will in his theory, autonomy, this power we have. He recognized distinction between reasoning and will, which I really think Socrates and Aristotle did not get that clarity, or at least they didn't explain it. They just assume it to be the case. Kant really gets down and talks about it in detail. He also discussed the idea of the idea of freedom. Willpower and freedom are two different things. Okay. A robot may do as it's programmed, but a robot is not free. It has will, it has volition, but it's not free. It's not free will. You can do things, but you have free will. All right. A dog may do things, but we don't treat the dog as having free will. It's autonomous, but we believe it's being driven, by biology, right? We believe it's being driven by the environment and the conditioning of its owners and things like that. Okay. So we don't treat the dog as having free will. Kant argued that, when you look at morality in detail, it's about applying our free will to doing things, no matter how we feel about it. He make a statement in his work. Yes, feeling may accompany good acts, but it should not be the fundamental motive of action, because it you can't always trust the feelings. Rather, we should do it because it's the right thing to do. And you're going to do that by using your reasoning. All right. And in this brilliant way, I really think he gets around David Hume. It doesn't really, feeling may accompany, but it's not a necessary component of doing the right thing. All right. You could be a liar, and now you understand you shouldn't be lying. And now, even though you feel like lying, you should not lie because you understand differently. Okay. This directly defends, I think, the Socrates modality. Indirectly, it defends that. But Socrates looking at internally, you just have that value of the knowledge itself. So when you act, think of actions in the world. A moral act means you're obeying the moral law. A civil act, when you put on your seatbelts in your car in a state that has a requirement you wear a seatbelt, you're being a good citizen. You're following the civil code. Okay, that's not morality then. You're being a civil. You're following the rules, all right, of the state. Morality in the world is following the moral law. It's just like a state law, following the moral law. And he thought that it had to be a person. The word maxim means personal statement of action. Please put that in your notes. A maxim is a personal statement of action. Immanuel Kant thought that morality is a feature of practical reasoning. So in order to get morality in the world, you must ask yourself, how should I behave? It's easy to ask, how should other people behave and get the answer? But how should I behave to get the best outcome? Okay? For everyone involved, okay? So a maxim is, he called it a categorical imperative. It's personal statement, but it's got to be true in a particular way. And so what do you mean by categorical imperative? I want to dig into this concept a little bit, okay? And I do recommend you go into Internet Encyclopedia, and in this case, also look at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and look at the concept of categorical imperative, all right? We had lots of talk about this concept. This was his word for the moral law. Kant's word for moral law is categorical imperative. What does it mean? It means at least these two things here. For him, these things have the same meaning. They lead to the categorical imperative. Act only on that maxim, whereby you get the same time where it should become a universal law of nature. You got to make it a personal statement. Fred is going to make George has a personal statement. I'm not going to steal. I'm going to steal Fred's motorcycle. Okay. Kant said it is personal. You say what you're going to do. That's important. What George is going to do is steal Fred's motorcycle. Then Kant said you have to go deeper. That statement would be a categorical imperative. What does that mean? The statement I'm about to make, anyone in my position, consider an ideal world called the Kingdom of Ends by Immanuel Kant, an ideal world, okay? And ask myself, can any citizen in that state, in this ideal world, steal a motorcycle without disturbing the functionality of the state? The answer is no. The whole thing will begin to fall apart if people can just steal motorcycles without any moral judgment to make them feel bad, without any legal consequence. The manufacturing, the sale of motorcycle will fall apart. This will occur for all rules, okay? Kant thinks that the act that you're contemplating that's moral ought to allow the society to continue to function, or allow the friendship to continue to function, or allow the love relationship to continue to function. If your act is going to destroy the functionality that's going on there, it's not moral. It's not universally true. All right. Similarly, you can, from the other side, always actually treat humanity as an end. In other words, George wants to steal Fred's motorcycle. Okay. George should see Fred as on the same level. Both are human beings. And put yourself in Fred's shoe and never merely means to an end. Don't use the other person. You want a motorcycle, get your own money, go buy your own motorcycle. If you steal the other person's motorcycle, you're trying to use that person's gain to live your life. Okay, you're using someone. All right. Again, when Kant makes this presentation, it's not about how you feel. Okay. If you put yourself in the other person's position, you say, can anyone steal my motorcycle? Kant said, don't look to your feelings, look at the logic. You can't say, I own a motorcycle and I don't own a motorcycle, because that's what stealing means. I own it, I'm going to assert I own it, I'm going to assert I don't own it. That's a contradiction. It's not about your feeling. It's impossible for you to have both ways. You can't both have the motorcycle and not have the motorcycle. You can't will a contradiction. And that's what happens when you try to do that. As a consequence, it's not based on your feelings when you do that. Okay. So Kant says to be more in the world, you're following the categorical imperative the way it's presented here. What you're about to do personally is what anyone else, if they're in that exact same situation, should do to maintain the social order, to maintain that relationship. Okay. Because it's for the greater good. All right. You're seeing the greater good through pure logic in this case here. This theory has a lot of misinterpretation. Many people think Kant argues that you should always tell the truth. You should always keep your promises. You should never steal. That's not what Kant says. Kant distinguishes two types of categorical imperative, okay? Two types of imperative, I should say. The categorical imperative and the hypothetical imperative. The categorical imperative, you're doing the right thing because the right thing to do in that situation. The hypothetical imperative is that you're doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason. Like when someone tells the truth because they're being threatened, okay, then the truth telling is hypothetical. If you didn't threaten them, they wouldn't tell the truth. If George doesn't steal Fred's motorcycle because he's afraid of him, then it's hypothetical. He's not acting ethically at all. He's afraid of Fred. That's why he doesn't steal it. That's hypothetical. That's not, you're not acting morally. Morality is that you look at a thing very closely. You see in that situation, it's the right thing to do, period. Not out of fear, not that you're getting money, so in other words, there is an absoluteness only in that if the situation accounts for it, it's the right thing to do. Okay, that's the only time the act occurs. And common sense day-to-day scenarios are just like that. There are many movies that pivot on this kind of Kantian approach. All right, they'll have a police officer who's really, really good. Or if I go back to the movies, I'll look at Ghost Protocol, in which the Mission Impossible team, if you haven't seen this movie, it's a group of agents that work for the government. They go do all kind of complex operations to save the American people from all kind of harm. And one time, the supervillains was able to convince the government that these people were bad and they were banned. They had to pretend to be villains in order to, and their own people, their own government, U.S. government chasing them while they meanwhile were pursuing the bad guys, okay? This is a hypothetical. They're acting bad for the purpose of the greater good. And in that sense, the Kantian machinery allows for that. A lot of good movies have done that. The good people have to do something bad in order for the greater good to occur, because no one else seems to be able to see the truth at the moment except for them. So when we get to we have to dig a little further now. Once you embrace the categorical imperative, okay, your moral act is an act of will. And like I said before, Kant developed the idea of the will, clearly seeing it as a functionality, a mechanical thing. A good will is an absolute good. He means it's mechanical. Okay. If your will, if you go to raise your hand in the air and you're raising your foot, then something is wrong with you. You need to go consult the doctor. Otherwise, the will is just a power, a force that you have. It's a good in itself. It's not morally good or immoral. It's not. No, it's just an action. So it's good in itself. All right. And this is where people can have disagreement with him. He thinks that the will is just there. It can go one way or the other, okay? Which is true if you want to understand morality and immorality. He thinks it's a human duty to put the will in the direction of reason. It's a human duty. That is, you shouldn't allow yourself to be driven by your emotion like David Hume wants you to do it, okay? By your feelings and stuff like that, right? Because they're unpredictable, okay? Now that they're wrong, okay? And often you want that to happen, what Hume says, Kant would agree to, but you should actually decide what you're going to do based on your reasoning first, all right? You should always do that. And if you see this kind of argument, he's actually defending Aristotle. Kant really is defending the ancient philosophers' way of Socrates and Aristotle in his theory. But he's now, during his time of writing, 1700, we have a deeper understanding of psychology and human nature, and he's going deep into human psychology, all right? And so I would say most people, when they talk to you, when you do something, when someone does something wrong, and you tell them, I know, it felt like the right thing to do. They say, where's your head? They drive you to go back to use your head, use your intelligence. But if you use your head and intelligence all the time, people saying you're being inhuman. Where's your feeling, man? Where's your heart at? Okay. So it's very unclear what people want in general. All right. So I say to you, you need to find out what works for you and also be open-minded, see how other people are approaching the situation in the world to understand them. Okay. Once you understand the categorical imperative and how important the will is in executing it, and how it is your duty to put the will on the direction of reason, drive your will primarily by your reasoning, okay? Kant says you should act from a sense of duty. If you get the two before, you should act of sense of duty, out of respect for the law. What kind of law? The moral law, not state law, not religious law, but the moral law, okay? The moral law. You have discovered what is right. Who gives you the moral law for Kant? You do. Not him, not Aristotle, not David Hume, not Socrates. You give yourself the moral law. What does that mean? He expects you to sit down and study for yourself and say, hey, if I lied to my friends and by the categorical imperative, they lied to me, can we have a friendship? The minute you see yourself, no, you couldn't have it, you say, aha, you discovered the moral law for yourself. Even though you've been doing it for a long time because your family told you to do it, now when you reflect upon it philosophically, you see, aha, through your intelligence, it's the right thing to do. My parents are good because they taught me something that is I have verified with my own intelligence. Now, it is now your truth, not just your parents. You're not following them anymore. Now it's your truth. Now it becomes a categorical imperative. You do it out of sense of duty because you're human. You see how that works? You see that was very subtle. Okay, very subtle. Okay, and I really love this movie. I think it's brilliant. The only problem is sometimes people they can have their own rules, but they don't follow their own rules. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, I'm just saying that. Okay, you could do whatever you want, but some people sometimes, just sometimes, not all the time, but just sometimes. People have rules, like they have rules of diet. You know, I'm not gonna eat the pizza. Then you see the guy eating the pizza, and I can't play that. I'm innocent. You know, I'm here. I'm teaching, but I. That pizza, how could you say no to the pizza? But you know it's bad. I know. This is the problem. It's not that this is wrong, but you understand you have to have strong character, strong will, or something that makes it really, really work. So a moral act is accomplished without a desire to benefit from the consequence. This is a summary of what I just said previously. You're not looking to benefit from yourself, okay? You're not saying, I'm acting out of selfishness. I'm doing this because I'm getting paid. Or like humans say, it's feeling. I'm acting primarily for my feelings. Okay. And I need to separate this. Okay. Consider mangoes. Mangoes are very nutritious fruits. Okay. I grew up eating mangoes. I grew up in South Florida. Okay. And lots of mango trees. I eat the mango because it tastes good and it's wonderful. All right. So when I get to school, what I discover, mango is nutritious. Wow, this good tasting stuff is healthy for you. And I can now imagine some people start eating mango because it's nutritious. And they're eating it not because of the feeling, the nice tasty feeling they get in there, because it's nutritious. See, but the person who's eating it for the feeling is getting all the nutrition, even though that's not their main focus. And the other one eating for nutrition is getting the good feeling, although that's not their main focus. That's the distinction between David Hume and Immanuel Kant. They both are engaged in the same act, can promote the same moral acts, but the one is saying that you can use your feeling to get to that act, and the other one is saying you could get to the act by understanding its value, that it promotes the greater good. Okay, if you look at it intellectually. So they both are going to the same place from different sides, right? Any other inclination, it's a pushback against Aristotle. If you interpret Aristotle in certain ways, Aristotle thinks that when you have the character, then it's moral. But Kant is saying, no, before the character even emerged, it's moral because it's the right thing to do. And if you do it long enough, it's going to become an inclination. But the inclination does not make it moral. It's because it is the right thing to do. You should be in a situation to do it so often. That's why it's moral. Okay. And so in this particular presentation, for Immanuel Kant, okay, an act is morally right. Okay. If it's categorical imperative, okay, and you act without trying to get the benefit of the consequences, right? So his theory in general is a little more complicated, okay? In the beginning, since he's a deontologist, it's very, very easy. What makes it morally right for Kant, okay? Morally right, you mean obeying the moral law. So it's a very straightforward theory. You're obeying the moral law, which he calls the categorical imperative. But obeying that categorical imperative is complicated by that you must understand you're doing it from free will, and you're not trying to do it at the benefit of the consequence. You just your understanding, your knowledge of what it means to promote the greater good. That's what drives you into doing it. Some people feel that this theory is detached from realities because it's so theoretical in nature. Okay, and this is the way John Stuart Mill criticized Kant. It's not that Kant is wrong, but it's so removed from day-to-day lives that it's very difficult to apply. When you enter into the judicial system and you get any problem legally, most people turn to the Kantian modality. They want to know what you were thinking and things like that. They do not refer to the Socrates, Aristotle, David Hume. Though they think about your character and who you are, they go towards your character, and they'll want to understand that as well. But what they could judge in the legal system is your behavior. And Kant is capturing these activities, so it works really, really well in his favor when you are looking at things from the legal perspective.